Hey everyone, hope you're having a wonderful day. I know I said I was going to have this video out much sooner than this, but y'all, life is so busy right now and the weather has finally made a change for the better and is beautiful. So between all the projects I have going on, being outside and all the good stuff, I try to focus on these videos when I have some downtime, and lately I just haven't had much of that. But here it is. So let's talk about where we left off when Katie Joy had a hearing with 7M on October 17th. That hearing was for Katie Joy's motion to reconsider summary judgment. Katie Joy filed her motion to reconsider, and then shortly after, 7M filed a motion for temporary injunction, asking the courts to please step in and make Katie Joy shut her mouth regarding Robert Shin, Miranda Derrick, and James Derrick while they are in litigation. 7M asked that that motion also be heard during this October 17th hearing. We do not know what exactly was heard during this hearing on the 17th. We do not know how much 7M was able to present regarding this temporary injunction, because on the day before the hearing, on October 16th, Katie Joy's attorney files this notice of motion saying that they have newly discovered evidence that is relevant to the motion to be heard by the court. And they claim that this new evidence will show that all plaintiffs lied in their declarations. It's bogus, y'all. That's my opinion, but you have to see it. So at this time, we don't know exactly what was said and heard at this hearing on October 17th. But what we do know is that directly after the hearing, there was notice of a new hearing for December 31st at 9 a.m. We also know that Katie Joy has been super quiet since that hearing. She made one post, which we knew she couldn't just completely stay quiet, right? So she had to make one little jab, and she did get one in. But for Katie Joy, that is super quiet. But what we're going to look at today are some posts that Katie Joy made before this hearing regarding Robert Shin and the raid that happened on his properties on July 25th of 2025, and how Katie Joy put out a bunch of information regarding a letter of forfeiture regarding over $100,000 that was seized from Robert Shin's property during that raid in July. So let's take a look at what Katie Joy had to say and why I think it is a problem for Katie Joy and where I think she's absolutely incorrect. And did this last minute filing of this motion cause another delay in this case? Did it delay 7M's motion for a temporary injunction to not be heard until the last day of 2025? That I don't know, but let's take a look at all the posts she made and this motion that her attorney filed on October 16th. So let's get into it, y'all. So as we know, because we have talked a lot about that on this channel, 7M Films, Robert Shin, Miranda Derrick, and James Derrick sued Katie Joy Paulson of Without a Crystal Ball in April of 2022 for defamation. Originally, 7M Films and Robert Shin is the CEO of 7M Films, they sued Katie Joy for defamation. And then in an amended complaint about 2 days later, I believe, Miranda Derrick and James Derrick were added as plaintiffs. And here we are over 3 years later, and this case is still ongoing. And actually, currently, this judge is considering Katie Joy's motion to reconsider summary judgment, because in the judge's June 23rd order, she granted in part and denied in part Katie Joy's motion for summary judgment. And what was granted were 13 statements that 7M stated were defamatory. And those 13 statements out of 83, I believe it was, could not be accessed because a link did not work. That's the only reason why that part was granted, not because she sided with what Katie Joy had said or said that those statements were not defamatory. Of course, Katie Joy took to social media and said that that's what happened, and it's not. It clearly states that they could not access those particular comments because the link did not work. And because there was a genuine dispute as to any material fact, this case was headed to trial. And in Minnesota, Katie Joy had the right to request from the judge the right to be able to file a motion to reconsider. So Katie Joy's attorney wrote a letter to the court requesting they allow Katie Joy to file a motion to reconsider, and gave their reasons why they thought the judge was incorrect in the June 23rd order, and the judge granted that request. And Katie Joy filed her motion to reconsider. 7M wrote their opposition, Katie Joy responded, and it is in review. Because that hearing was held last Friday, October 17th. You would think that while this case is under review for summary judgment, that Katie Joy would keep her mouth shut, but she can't and she couldn't. And therefore, 7M filed that motion for a temporary injunction right before Katie Joy filed her response to 7M's opposition to Katie Joy's motion to reconsider. So, was that heard on October 17th, or did they schedule a new hearing for December 31st solely to hear 7M's motion for temporary injunction? That I do not know. But what we can consider is that we should be seeing a ruling on Katie Joy's motion to reconsider. It is possible. I think it's very unlikely, but it's possible. Never say never, right? It is possible that this judge looked at Katie Joy's argument in her motion to reconsider, and the judge actually say, yeah, I had it all wrong. All of the counts I considered, I got wrong. Everything I got wrong, I take it back. I'm going to say I'm granting Katie Joy's motion in full. And this ends here. Boom, done. That is a very long shot, but it could happen. So first we need to see what the judge's ruling is on this motion to reconsider. And then we should start seeing more information regarding their motion for a temporary injunction. Now, with all that said, their motion for temporary injunction was because Katie Joy could not stop posting and talking about Robert Shin and Miranda and James Derrick after there was a federal raid on Robert Shin's home and other properties. We have discussed all of this in previous videos. This is just a quick recap. But one of the things that Katie Joy started to say, again, while not only that she's in litigation, that this judge is considering her motion to reconsider the summary judgment ruling, Katie Joy is making posts and putting things out from another case that Robert Shin is involved in Los Angeles. And what her main point is that in that case in LA, Robert Shin requested a stay in the case, which was granted, but he did not do that for her in her case in Minnesota. And after the raid, they requested a stay in California, which clearly pissed Katie Joy off because there's not one in her case. But let me give a little backstory on the LA case to give you some understanding as to what Katie Joy is apparently missing here. There are two sisters, Melanie and Priscilla. Priscilla at one point went by Alicia, but now she's back to going by Priscilla. So Melanie and Priscilla were part of the church and had been in Robert's life since they were teenagers, I believe. Nonetheless, Melanie left the church years ago. Priscilla stayed in. I think there was one point where she left and then came back, and that might have been a couple times, but I know at least once she returned to the church and was there until 2022 when all of this came out that Miranda Derrick is stuck in a cult, a quote-unquote cult, and the lawsuit in Minnesota against Katie Joy had started. Priscilla left the church around that time. After she left, she sent a demand letter to Robert Shin demanding he pay her $30 million. I believe it was $25 million to Robert and $5 million to his wife, Hannah Shin, and they were to pay, a collective amount of $30 million to her for damages for all of the abuse that she says she incurred while she was under Robert's care and or working for him or a member of the church. But all of the years that she was with him in some manner, she says she endured a lot of abuse, and she was suing him, or she was demanding that he pay her this $30 million or she was going to take him to court and sue him. And this demand letter is saying that if I took you to court and sued you, I'd be granted more than $30 million, but let's just cut it here at $30 million. Instead, Robert says, no. I'm not paying you $30 million. None of this is true. So he turned around and he sued her, along with her sister and 3 other bloggers that were on Instagram that were talking about Robert Shin. And that happened sometime around October of 2022. I might have a few of these dates incorrect by just a little bit, but for the most part, if there are some inconsistencies, it's nothing huge. The gist here is the same. So Robert Shin says, no, I'm going to sue you, and not only you, your sister, and these 3 other bloggers that you have been clearly conspiring with to bring me down. At some point in time after this lawsuit was filed, 2 of the defendants, I believe it was Melanie Lee, one of the sisters, and one of the bloggers that goes under the Instagram name Stop Colting, they filed an anti-SLAPP. In California, an anti-SLAPP law will help protect the rights of individuals and their free speech and protect them from lawsuits that are designed to just silence them, which goes against their free speech and their rights. So you can file an anti-SLAPP and say, they're just trying to silence me. There is no grounds for this. This would never survive in the courts under defamation. And the judge can decide whether or not they feel this case could be dismissed with this anti-SLAPP law. And the judge came back and ruled in favor mostly to these 2 defendants. And don't quote me on any of this. I understand that some of this could be inaccurate in what I'm saying as far as like small details. This probably is not 100% accurate, but the gist is still the same, that 2 of the defendants filed an anti-SLAPP and the judge ruled mostly in their favor. During that time, one of the other bloggers, which I think is the only smart one in this whole situation, that's just my opinion, they decided to settle with Robert Shin. When they did, they handed over a bunch of evidence to Robert Shin in this settlement. And within that evidence, there was communication between all of the defendants. And Robert Shin then said, this proves that they were conspiring against me. So he appealed that ruling, and the judge did agree that this new evidence did show that there could be some conspiracy behind this. So the judge changed the ruling, and it was less in favor for the defendants as it was prior. That's the gist of it. The other blogger exposing 7M, they have never been served. That's my understanding, that they have dodged being served this entire time. However, they have acknowledged that they are being sued because they've talked about it. So those are the 5 defendants that were originally sued by Robert Shin. And now it is 4, Melanie, Priscilla, exposing 7M, and Stop Colting. Then somewhere along the way, I don't know the exact date, cross complainants were added to this lawsuit. These cross complainants consist of dancers, ex-dancers that were with 7M at some point in time, along with some ex-members of the church. And ultimately, they are suing Robert Shin for all the things that the defendants are stating Robert Shin has done to them. So now Robert Shin is not only the plaintiff in his original complaint and lawsuit, he is now also a defendant. So that is the main difference, right? He is now a defendant in his case in LA. In Minnesota, he's still only the plaintiff. So where she started to talk about it, such as in this post, she included Robert Shin's attorney's declaration where he states, without extending the discovery stay in the civil action, cross-defendants' Fifth Amendment rights will be seriously undermined and would directly impose an unjust penalty on them. Without a stay, cross-defendants will have to assert their Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination if forced to testify at deposition or to provide responses to written discovery. So Katie Joy made a lot of posts regarding these filings. And basically she was trying to say, in a lot of them, that, look, in his LA case, he's willing to admit to the court that he is under a federal investigation because he wants to stay in his case. But he is refusing to provide any information regarding this investigation to the Minnesota court. And that is just not the case. That is not true. He was not refusing to provide any information to the Minnesota court. His attorney in Minnesota, Amber Stavig, never withheld any information regarding this federal investigation. So statements such as these, that along with many others, that I guess caused 7M to feel the urgency to file a motion for a temporary injunction. And I went over that in another video where we showed the exhibits that Amber Stavig included in this motion, showing all the statements and transcripts, etc. And as the hearing was approaching, as October 17th was approaching, Katie Joy starts making these posts, such as this, where it states, public notice for forfeiture of $105,222 seized from Robert Shin's home on July 25th, 2025. She also made this post where it says, no more pimpin', Roberto. She recently stated how in fear for her safety she is, how fearful she is of Robert Shin, yet she's going to make posts like this, taunting him and calling him Roberto. May I remind you again that he is Korean? So then she says, Robert Shin received the notice of forfeiture in a letter on September 9th. The letter stated the feds were forfeiting his money under 18 U.S. 1981 and the funds were linked to federal crimes. His Minnesota attorney, Amber Stavig, filed a motion for emergency injunction on September 17th to bar me from talking and accusing me of defaming him, and filed documents denying there was any federal investigation. Robert knew full well the motion was fraudulent and filed it anyway. I guess you meant to say filed it anyway, costing me another $10,000 to defend myself. He's evil, in my opinion. So is it your opinion that Amber Stavig filed documents denying there was any federal investigation? Like, what's your opinion here, Katie Joy? All of this? And that's where the problem lies. And not only that, this is just more evidence for Amber Stavig to present to the court, showing Katie Joy lying, but not only that, saying that they're filing a fraudulent motion and she is denying that there's any federal investigation to this court in Minnesota. And that is just not true. And this was just after they filed this injunction. So, of course, this is up for the judge to decide. Is it fraudulent? Is this judge going to grant it? I don't know, but it's so stupid for Katie to keep making these posts. That's just my opinion. We all have one, right, Katie Joy? Katie Joy's big argument is that all she did was post public records, and that's not defamatory. And this post says public records are not defamatory. Robert Shin is under investigation. But that is not what you posted. And Amber Stavig has those posts. She has the transcripts for the things that you said when you were on News Nation. And she has the videos that you recorded stating certain things that they consider to be defamatory and harmful to all of the plaintiffs. But Katie clearly doesn't care that there's a motion for temporary injunction out there and that she's under current litigation, that the judge is considering her motion for reconsideration and summary judgment, right? None of that matters. She's still just going to continue posting about Robert Shin. And it's just weird because, again, she claims she's afraid of Robert Shin, yet she's going to say things such as this. And I'm sorry, pardon my language. This is just fucking weird, y'all. She says, it's actually romantic how much Robert is obsessed with me that he would lie in a Minnesota court that he's not under federal investigation. I think he's flirting with me. First of all, he never lied to a Minnesota court. And for you to be so afraid of him, calling him a sex trafficker, saying that he's committing all these sex crimes, and you're sitting here saying you think it's romantic and that he is flirting with you. What the hell is wrong with you, Katie Joy? Seriously. Anyone? I mean, honestly. But it gets even more bizarre, y'all. And her post will be relentless once she discovered this notice of forfeiture. And she's going to run with the narrative that this proves that Robert Shin lied to the Minnesota court because he did not provide, I guess, or state that he's under investigation and that he received a notice of forfeiture to prove that he's under this investigation. So she continues to make these posts regarding this notice of forfeiture. Here, Katie Joy says, Robert's attorneys refuse to out him as a target, but public forfeiture notices prove he's a target and his money is being forfeited. Wonder how long until he can't pay attorney's fees to Amber Stavig. Well, I guess we could ask you the same question, Katie Joy, because I don't think this is going away anytime soon. But again, that's just my opinion. Here she says, imagine Robert Shin calling the feds and saying, give me my money back, electronics, phones, and evidence of my crimes, with a bunch of laughing emojis. And then she quotes a part out of this filing that says, despite repeated requests to the government to return their property, the government has refused to do so, and more laughing emoji faces. So I thought you were so terrified of this man, Katie Joy, that you have PTSD. Your words, that you have PTSD because of Robert Shin. But this is how you address him on your public platforms. So she hyper focuses on this notice of forfeiture that Robert Shin received. Like, it is a lot of posting, a lot of discussion on her platforms. And here she says, here is the public legal notice of forfeiture filed publicly at forfeiture.gov. Here you see USPS seized $105,000 from Robert Shin, and the money was taken due to its involvement in a crime. As a result, the money is subject to forfeiture to the federal government. So Katie Joy makes this post. And again, these are probably not in order of how she posted them. I don't know. They were all probably on the same day, if not, within 2 days. So nonetheless, this was a post that was actually and is still on her page. The others were on her Instagram stories. But in this post, it states, cult leader, not alleged cult leader anymore, straight up cult leader, Robert Shin's money seized. $105,222 forfeited to the U.S. government. And here's what she wrote underneath that post. Within the post, now it's back to alleged cult leader Robert Shin has been officially named a target in a federal criminal investigation. According to an official U.S. Postal Inspection Service forfeiture notice, federal authorities have started the process of permanently seize $105,222 in cash taken during a raid on 5 properties tied to Shin, his church, and his businesses on July 25th, 2025. This type of notice is only issued when the government believes a property is connected to federal crimes. If no one contests the seizure, the money is automatically forfeited to the United States. If a claim is filed, prosecutors must present their evidence in court. Being designated a target means the federal government believes there is substantial evidence linking Shin to federal offenses. It is a status that typically comes right before indictment. Shin was the subject of the hit Netflix documentary series Dancing for the Devil, the 7M TikTok cult, which exposed shocking allegations from former members who say he recruited aspiring dancers and influencers into his church, isolated them from their families, controlled their finances and social media accounts, and profited from their online fame. Survivors in the series accused Shin of sex trafficking, fraud, money laundering, coercive control, and creating a system of psychological and financial abuse that dictated every part of their lives. The current federal investigation now mirrors many of those allegations and involves accusations of sex trafficking, money laundering, fraud, tax evasion, and mail fraud. So one of the things I want to point out here regarding the Netflix docuseries is a couple of things. One, Katie Joy was a part of the production, a very small part. She liked to brag about it and even, called it her documentary on occasion. But she was what they labeled an archival consultant, where she helped provide documentation to the production. There were 2 other archival consultants, and that was Exposing 7M and Stop Culting. The 2 bloggers that are in current litigation with Robert Shin in LA. And then, of course, Katie Joy is in current litigation with Robert Shin in Minnesota. Yet they still participated in this docuseries. The survivors that Katie Joy is referring to here mainly are the two sisters, Melanie and Priscilla. They told their story on the docuseries. They were interviewed, so they were a part of the docuseries as well. Again, all of these people that participated in this Netflix docuseries behind the scenes, well, Melanie and Priscilla were more in the forefront because they interviewed, they spoke, you saw their faces, they told their stories. Nonetheless, all of them are in current litigation with Robert Shin. There were also a couple of dancers that were part of the show that were interviewed, and they are also part of the lawsuit in Los Angeles as cross-complainants. So Katie Joy points out that now this federal investigation mirrors what was said in this docuseries. But can we all just keep in mind that everybody involved, besides the producer pretty much, have been telling this story about Robert Shin prior to the Netflix docuseries. They were sued by Robert Shin for defamation prior to the docuseries. And of course, they're all going to say, and take it with a grain of salt or don't, that the reason why they were being sued was to silence them so they would not partake in a docuseries such as this Netflix docuseries, Dancing for the Devil, the TikTok Cult. She also states with fact that all of these allegations involved sex trafficking, money laundering, fraud, tax evasion, and mail fraud. She states as a fact, let me say that again, that this current federal investigation mirrors, all of these accusations. And she uses the hashtag sex trafficking, which if you watched any of the past videos, the judge had an issue with her hashtags and said that her hashtags in a post should be considered as part of the post, making it a whole. So if you're talking about raising kittens in Minnesota in the winter months, but underneath it you hashtag sex trafficking, then you are still making this post somehow about sex trafficking. It's a horrible analogy, I know. Forgive me, but you catch my drift where I'm going with that. And she's still using it. She's still using the hashtag when she knows that the judge has not ruled on anything yet regarding, is this defamation or is this not? She's only digging a deeper hole, in my opinion. For the life of me, I cannot understand. But y'all, this is where it gets interesting because I think she knows at some level that she could be in a lot of trouble, possibly. This might not be going the way she thought it would go. And the day before the hearing, so on October 16th, Katie Joy's attorney files a motion. And y'all, it is utterly ridiculous. And I'm sorry to say that, but I just don't know how else to explain it. So here it is. And it says, please take notice that on October 17th, 2025 at 3 p.m. or as soon thereafter as counsel may be heard before the courts, that Katie will move the court for the following relief. For consideration of the affidavit and exhibits filed on 9th declaration of Jennifer Moore, notwithstanding the fact that the information stated therein is newly discovered evidence that is relevant to the motion to be heard by the court. This motion is based on the files, records, and proceedings herein and the 9th declaration of Jennifer Moore with attached exhibits. Signed, Jennifer Moore. And here is that 9th declaration of Jennifer Moore, where she states that after defendants filed their September 26, 2025 memorandum opposing plaintiff's motion for temporary injunction, 2 public records became available in a related California civil case. And she lists exhibits. Exhibit A is a true and correct copy of a notice of forfeiture published by the United States Postal Inspection Service. And this is where they are introducing this to the court to show that he had $105,000 seized during the July 25th raid and then later received this notice of forfeiture for that said money. Exhibit B is a copy of the declaration of the attorney that Katie Joy had already blasted all over her social media that was filed on October 8th of 2025 in the California case. And they state that paragraph 2 of that declaration acknowledges the receipt of that notice of forfeiture on September 9th of 2025 from the United States Postal Inspection Service, and further references a pending criminal action affecting the same cross defendant. And they say both Exhibits A and B are filed in public court records and are subject to judicial review under Minnesota Rule of Evidence 201B. They then say that these records directly contradict the September 17th, 2025 affidavits of plaintiffs Robert Shin, Miranda Derrick, and James Derrick, each of whom swore that no criminal charges have been made against me related to defendants' statements and denied the existence of any law enforcement action. And this is where I'm like, okay, how far are we reaching here? And how desperate is Katie Joy at this point in time? And will this filing get under the judge's skin? Because what does this even say, really? The statement in each of the plaintiff's affidavits said, no criminal charges have been made against me related to Katie Joy's statements. So how is that a contradiction? There are no criminal charges at this time. And there were no criminal charges, particularly at the time they each signed that affidavit. But mostly to me, what stands out is that they included James and Miranda Derrick in this. We know Robert Shin was raided. We know now that Robert Shin had $105,000 plus seized during those raids and that he received a notice of forfeiture. That we know. That's Robert Shin, not Miranda or James Derrick. So to include all plaintiffs to say pretty much that they lied in their affidavits just doesn't make sense to me. So they end by saying the existence of a federal forfeiture proceeding and a declaration by plaintiff's own California counsel referencing a criminal investigation demonstrate that plaintiff's affidavits were inaccurate and that Katie Joy's reporting concerns matters of public interest. So what she's saying clearly is that Robert Shin, Miranda Derrick, and James Derrick were all untruthful in their affidavits because Robert Shin had received notice of forfeiture on September 9th and their affidavits were signed on September 17th. But maybe for Robert Shin that could be an issue, but not for Miranda and James Derrick. However, what was said in the affidavits was that no criminal charges have been made against me. Being raided, having property seized. Within that property, they also seized cash that was found in the property amounting to $105,222. So let's take a look at Exhibit A, which is apparently the notice of forfeiture that Robert Shin received. The first thing I noticed is, and maybe it's just on the filing that I was able to upload from the website, maybe this is not how it looks in the real filing, but this isn't even the full document. This isn't even the full notice that he received. It's cropped, and that's confusing in itself. And then I'm confused, like, did Jennifer Moore read this? Because, it states that a forfeiture letter from the United States Postal Inspection Service is an official notice that your property has been seized and that the government intends, that they intend to take permanent ownership of it. And this letter is part of that process where law enforcement can confiscate property connected to criminal activity. But that does not necessarily mean that there was criminal activity because he has options. Robert Shin still has options. And there is a deadline. And according to this letter, down at the bottom, we're not even at that date as of now. It's not until November 14th of 2025. And this is what is included in her evidence. This is the notice. It states that he has options, that this is not a final decision, but yet he has a very limited time in order to respond. And according to some of Katie Joy's posts, when she made laughing emoji faces, remember, it seems that he is taking those steps. or that notice included as evidence is very hard to read, so I thought I'd let Google help us out to help define what this forfeiture letter means. And it says that it is a seizure, not conviction. Forfeiture is a civil action brought against the property, not a criminal conviction against a person. It does not require you to be charged with or convicted of a crime. The government only needs to show a connection between the property and criminal activity, such as mail fraud, drug trafficking, or money laundering. So at this time, there's no charges. This is not a charge. This is not a criminal conviction against a person. So I'm confused as to why she even filed this motion to argue this point. I see in some ways that she wants to get it in front of the judge and say, hey, look, XYZ. But to say that they all lied in their affidavits as being your main argument in this, how is that going to fly? It says there's a strict deadline. The letter begins a time-sensitive process. You must file a claim to challenge the forfeiture within the time frame specified in the notice, or you will lose your right to the property. The notice informs you that the United States Postal Inspection Service has physically taken possession of your property. He has been notified, and he has the opportunity to take steps. And as it says here, he has the option of filing a petition for remission or mitigation. So if he does not want to go to court, he can file a petition asking the United States Postal Inspection Service to return his money that was seized or reduce the forfeiture. And, I guess, if he's saying he's innocent, that he owns this money and it's not related to illegal activity, then he can file a petition. It also says filing a claim, and to challenge the seizure in federal court, he must file a claim. And within this time frame that it says here, in this notice that is submitted as evidence, so to me that's saying that Jennifer Moore recognizes that he has until November 14th of 25 to do one of these options. Right? And filing a claim to challenge this in federal court, that would be that he's wanting to contest the seizure and assert an ownership back, right? So he has two options for him here. Or I guess he could just let it go and be like, okay, I don't want to mess with this. Because here's my understanding, y'all. And this is what really gets me with this, okay? Because Katie Joy is making this huge deal that Robert Shin had this money seized. Therefore, that means there's an indictment coming, right? I mean, she stated that this means that he's about to be convicted of something. But that's not necessarily the case. And that's what's so infuriating about Katie Joy Paulson is that she makes these posts and states them as fact when there are so many factors just within this in itself. They filed this motion basically saying that, yeah, look, he had money seized. He was sent notice of forfeiture, and he's lying by saying he hasn't had any criminal charges against him. But that's not a lie. And if you read this notice, it states that there's still time. This is still open. This is still an open investigation, more than likely. They're still investigating what's happening with this whole situation. They seized the money, decided to send him a notice of forfeiture. He has opportunities to, contest all of this. But it does not mean that this is an absolute 100% situation that is going to have him arrested. And Katie Joy just needs to have that narrative out there for her own sake. Katie Joy needs Robert Shin to be behind bars. Okay, she's made that very clear. I believe that it's because she wants this lawsuit to go away. And she's even said that when it came to somebody asking a question about Netflix docuseries. She's basically saying, well, in order for that to happen, he needs to be behind bars. She's also said that she's hoping he'll be behind bars and then this whole lawsuit will just go away. Here's where she talked about her PTSD, and she says, the intimidation and threats have put me under immense stress and anxiety. Despite my multiple reports to the FBI and local law enforcement, nothing was done. Now that Shin has finally become the target of the feds and is under a grand jury investigation, my PTSD from last summer has peaked. I'm nervous, on edge, and dealing with a lot of fear. All of this is to say, Robert Shin has many victims. I am one of his victims. I hope for relief when he is finally arrested and indicted, and I hope the judge throws out his case against me. This was on August 20th. I cannot say this enough times. If Katie Joy is so terrified of Robert Shin, she would not poke at him. She would not say and do the things that she does on social media. And it seems to me that something obviously was said in this hearing on October 17th because Katie Joy has not opened her mouth. She made one post because she has to do that. She couldn't just stay quiet. She had to say something. She had to get something in. And we know, obviously, that something was said about doxing in this hearing because that's what the post was about. And it lists Shekinah Church, which is a church that we've been referencing through this video with the members, etc. And she puts, when your church is located at a P.O. box, is it really a church? This isn't doxing. The address is the post office. Well, I blocked it out because guess what? That address is not to the post office. Okay. So you were accused of doxing recently when you put out James and Miranda's marriage license that you obtained through discovery in this case. And when you did that, you doxed someone. So I guess you just had to find a smart ass way because you're so terrified of Robert Shin, but yet you had to find a smart ass way to say, I'm not doxing you. Here's a P.O. box. And then be like, whose church is located at a P.O. box? Is it really a church? I mean, the level of poking the bear with Katie Joy is so crazy because you're going to scream PTSD from him. You have post-traumatic stress disorder because of Robert Shin, yet you make posts like this. And here are some others just to show you that, in my opinion, clearly, Katie Joy is not afraid of Robert Shin. You would not do these things to somebody that you are in fear of for your safety, your family's safety, whatever. She says, this is a man suing me. No wonder he's suing me. Maybe he thinks the money will cometh to him. Won't work, Roberto. It's just really weird shit. And she just does it all the time. Well, she's been very quiet since October 17th. She says, it's not looking good for you, Bobby. So now she's calling him Bobby. Like, here, Robert Shin, through a lawsuit, asserts that he is not the leader of a sex trafficking ring. I am not a sex trafficker, was another post. And she's just reposting it and then says, aged like milk. So, straight up calling him a sex trafficker in the middle of a litigation, and then wonders why 7M is filing a motion for a temporary injunction. When she was told Robert had a nickname for her, which was Sandwich, then she made a lot of posts taunting him regarding the nickname Sandwich. And here's just one of those where she says, Sandwich has a question. Hey, Robert, how come you won't give us your financial records and discovery for the lawsuit? I mean, you provided a bank enough statements to get a $1.3 million mortgage on this $2 million home. Can you say stalker without saying stalker, number one? And that's part of the problem. She's always pulling up everything regarding them and then blasting it online. Another reason 7M is like, okay, this needs to stop. And there's a lot of doxing happening too. Let's not forget that Katie Joy did in fact dox Miranda and James's address. I don't care what she says. I saw it. I know their address because of Katie Joy Paulson. I have no interest in knowing it. I never would have wanted to know it. And luckily, I'll do nothing with that information. But how many other people, how many hundreds, if not thousands of people saw that post before she, oops, it was an accident, and then went to edit it? And it was not that quick, y'all. Plenty of people saw it. If I saw it, so did hundreds of others. And this just proves my point that Katie Joy is not afraid. You do not make posts like this if you are afraid of somebody. You do not taunt them. You do not stalk them, whatever. Somebody asked, are you ever concerned about your safety? These abusive men seem to stop at nothing. And she wrote, nope. So back to this post where she's talking about how fearful for her life she is, how his threats have put her under immense stress and anxiety. But y'all, they have never put anything out publicly against Katie Joy. They've done everything through the legal system. Katie Joy has accused a lot of accounts of being Robert Shin. She has said that he had her swatted and all of these things, which is just funny because all the things that happened in the Toddy Westbrook, when she was being sued by Toddy Westbrook in that lawsuit, all of these crazy things happened. Kind of funny that almost to a T, the identical things happened to Katie Joy. She's the victim here, y'all. It's Katie Joy who's the victim because all these horrible things happened to her. And she's saying it's by Robert Shin. And she says despite her multiple reports that FBI and local law enforcement, nothing was done. So here's a question that so many people ask. And 7M actually addressed it on page 6 of their plaintiff's response memorandum in support of motion for temporary injunction, which is the last filing they have filed. And on page 6, it says that the entire existence of the investigation is due to the false and defamatory statements made by Katie Joy and her continued harassment and urging her followers to report Robert Shin to the FBI. And if you follow Katie Joy or know Katie Joy enough, we know that Katie Joy did, in fact, encourage her followers and her subs to contact, such here in this post, to contact the LA District Attorney's Office. She's literally telling them to contact the DA. She also did posts where she told them to contact the Sheriff's Office, the LAPD, along with the IRS, the FBI. She made videos about it. She made plenty of posts about this. We know that Katie Joy is needing Robert Shin behind bars because she thinks it is going to make her case go away. It's going to make this lawsuit go away. That is costing her a lot of money. And you could tell she's pissed off about it because in posts like this, she'll say, he filed a motion that was fraudulent and it's costing her another $10,000 to defend herself. Well, here's an idea, Katie. Just shut your mouth. First of all, she doesn't get many views in comparison to her other content. She doesn't get many views about this. Not many people truly care about her being a victim of Robert Shin. I think they're bored with it, and I think they see through it to some degree. She's not getting that kind of engagement. So to me, it's kind of funny that she's spending all of this money. Like recently, she said that she has spent over $200,000 defending herself against Robert Shin, and now she's going to have to put in another $10,000 according to her. But all of this money is going towards a case that not many people care about. And I wish more people did for the sake of Miranda and James Derrick. Katie Joy says that she's doing this for Miranda and she's trying to get Miranda back to her family. But anybody that follows Katie Joy, anybody that knows Katie Joy and stands on the same side that I do regarding Katie Joy, we know that Katie Joy is in this for the money. Katie Joy is in this for herself. She's in this for the clicks and views that bring her money. If she was in this for Miranda Derrick, she would not have done all the things she has done to Miranda Derrick. Again, there are plenty of videos on my channel showing all the horrible things she has done alone just to Miranda. Then we see here what she's doing with Robert Shin. I get it. I'm not defending Robert Shin. I've never said what side of the fence I stand on regarding Robert Shin. But the facts are the facts. And as we stand today, as I film this, Robert Shin has not been arrested. Robert Shin has not been charged with any crimes. Is he under federal investigation? Yes, he is. Has he admitted that to the courts in LA? Of course. He needed to stay in his case. But has he denied this federal investigation that he's under? Has he denied that to the courts in Minnesota? No, he has not. But Katie Joy needs to get this narrative out that he is such a horrible person to all of her people that follow her, just so she can be a bigger victim of Robert Shin. When in all reality, if anybody needs to be worried about a victim of Robert Shin, according to Katie Joy, it's Miranda and James Derrick. But Katie's too busy being the victim herself that she's forgotten what she's fighting for, apparently. So we'll end this one here for today, y'all. But here's where we stand clearly. Katie Joy cannot keep her mouth shut. She has said some really, really damning things, which if they were factual and they could be proven and they were damning, well, that's one thing. But 7M is saying that what Katie Joy has been putting out there as fact is not true, and it is harming every aspect of the plaintiff's lives. So they filed a motion for temporary injunction, and that just so happened to be under the time that the judge is reviewing summary judgment in this case. Katie Joy says it's strategy, but if you look at all of her posts and you look at everything Katie has done, I don't think it's strategy on 7M's part, because Katie Joy has not shut up. Katie Joy has done some very, very damaging things to the plaintiffs, in my opinion. I've watched it. We've seen it. It's not like 7M is just saying this to the court and not providing any evidence to back it up. There's plenty of evidence to back up what Katie Joy has said and was continuing to say up until October 17th. Again, do I think Katie Joy can keep her mouth shut? No, I do not. But in the meantime, we should be seeing a ruling on Katie's motion to reconsider the summary judgment ruling that the judge made on June 23rd of 2025. Once we see that ruling and we know which direction this case is going, is it going to continue going in the way the judge said? Is she going to stick to her guns and stick with her ruling? Then the judge, what is she going to say about this temporary injunction? Is she going to say, yeah, this needs to stop, or no, that I cannot have her shut her mouth. This, is still within her rights of free speech. I personally think that there will be some type of injunction. I do think there'll be some sort of reins put on Katie Joy. I just do. That is if this case continues on and looks like it's heading to trial. Do I personally think this is bad for Katie Joy? I do. I think Katie Joy thought she could say whatever she wanted to, because in the past she has gotten away with so much. This is not going in the way she thought it would go, and that is very clear. And what happens with someone like Katie Joy, from what I see, from my opinion, she can't keep her mouth shut. She explodes. She gets so mad she has to say something. And in the scheme of things, nobody really cares that follows her about what she has to say, other than the counsel for 7M, who is watching her very, very closely. So I will keep you guys updated on anything else that happens in this case. As always, I will be delayed. I will try to do it as fast as I can. There are a couple of other things I do want to talk about on this channel, so I will try to get some videos out regarding that. But if something is filed, I will try to get that out as quickly as possible. If you have not yet subscribed to this channel, please consider doing so. You can hit that thumbs up, ring that notification bell, and it will alert you each time I put out a new video or decide to go live. And as always, thank you so much for being here. I hope to see you on the next one, and I hope to see you in the comments below. Have a great day, y'all.